Sophie Kelly nearly dropped her coffee when she opened the envelope addressed to someone named Nathan Harlow and found a check for $47,000 inside. The morning had started like any other Thursday in her small apartment, sorting through the pile of mail that had accumulated in her box downstairs. She had lived at 428 Maple Grove Lane for 3 years now, ever since moving to the city to pursue her career in environmental consulting. The building was old but charming, with creaky floors and radiators that clanged at odd hours, but it was hers and she loved it. What she did not love was constantly receiving mail for people who did not live there. At first, she thought the address mix-up was a one-time thing. A credit card offer here, a furniture catalog there. Then it became weekly. Letters from law firms, statements from investment companies, packages from luxury retailers, all addressed to Nathan Harlow at her address. She had returned them all, writing "not at this address" on each envelope and dropping them back in the outgoing mail. But they kept coming. The check was different, though. This was not junk mail or something that could wait. Someone was probably frantic looking for $47,000. Sophie pulled out her phone and searched the name, Nathan Harlow. Her screen filled with results immediately. CEO of Harlow Industries, a manufacturing company that specialized in sustainable building materials. The articles painted him as a business genius who had turned his father's struggling factory into a multi-million-dollar enterprise by pivoting to eco-friendly products. There were photos of him at charity galas, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and industry conferences. Tall, dark-haired, probably in his early 30s, with the kind of sharp jawline and intense eyes that made him look like he never smiled. She zoomed in on one photo. He wore a perfectly tailored suit and had his arms crossed, looking directly at the camera with an expression that seemed to assess and dismiss everything in one glance. Everything about him screamed wealth and power. Sophie looked down at her own outfit. Jeans with a small paint stain on the knee from helping her neighbor repaint her kitchen last month, an oversized sweater that had been her brother's in college, and fuzzy socks, because the hardwood floors were always cold in February. She was the complete opposite of whatever world Nathan Harlow inhabited, but $47,000 was $47,000. She could not just send this back through regular mail. What if it got lost? What if someone stole it? The business address was listed online. Harlow Industries headquarters, about 30 minutes from her apartment. She could go there on her lunch break, hand-deliver it, and finally figure out why his mail kept ending up in her mailbox. Sophie finished her coffee, got dressed in something more professional, a gray blazer over a white blouse and black slacks, and headed to work. Her firm was small, just 8 consultants who worked with businesses to reduce their environmental impact. She loved the work, even if it meant dealing with stubborn clients who thought going green was too expensive. Today, she was scheduled to review water usage reports for a restaurant chain, tedious but necessary. The morning dragged. She kept thinking about the check in her purse, about the mystery of the mail mix-up, about Nathan Harlow's stern face in those photos. Finally, noon arrived. "I have to run an errand," she told her colleague Marcus as she grabbed her coat. "I will be back in an hour." The drive to Harlow Industries took her to the industrial district on the north side of the city, where old factories had been renovated into modern facilities. The Harlow building stood out, a massive structure with huge windows and solar panels covering the entire roof. Even the landscaping looked intentional, native plants that required minimal water, permeable paving for the parking lot. Someone had put thought into this. Sophie walked through the front entrance into a sleek lobby with polished concrete floors and reclaimed wood accent walls. A receptionist sat behind a curved desk, typing rapidly on her computer. "Hi," Sophie said, approaching the desk. "I need to deliver something to Nathan Harlow. It was sent to my address by mistake." The receptionist looked up, her expression polite but guarded. "Mr. Harlow does not accept unscheduled visitors. You can leave it with me and I will make sure he gets it. It is kind of important. A check for a lot of money. I would feel better giving it to him directly." "I understand, but Mr. Harlow's schedule is very full. If you leave your contact information, someone from his office will follow up with you." Sophie hesitated. She had come all this way, taken time off work, and now she was supposed to just hand over a $47,000 check to a receptionist. But what choice did she have? She could not exactly demand to see him. She was about to agree when a door to the left of the reception desk opened, and a man walked through, phone pressed to his ear. Sophie recognized him immediately from the photos. Nathan Harlow in person was somehow more imposing than his picture suggested. He had to be at least 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his navy suit jacket perfectly. His dark hair was slightly tousled, like he had been running his hands through it, and there was a tension in his jaw as he listened to whoever was on the other end of the phone. "I do not care what the contractor says," he was saying, his voice deep and firm. "We had an agreement. If they cannot deliver on time, we will find someone who can." He paused by the reception desk, waiting for something, and his eyes landed on Sophie. For a moment their gazes locked. His eyes were a striking gray-blue, the kind of color that seemed to change depending on the light. There was an intensity to his stare that made her feel like he was analyzing her, calculating something. Then the moment passed. The receptionist handed him a folder, and he was walking toward the exit, still on his phone. "Wait," Sophie called out, surprising herself. She rushed after him. "Mr. Harlow," he stopped, turning to face her with a slight frown. He held up one finger, signaling her to wait, and continued his conversation. "Yes, fine. Send me the revised timeline by end of day. We will discuss it tomorrow." He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. "Yes." Up close, Sophie could see the faint lines around his eyes, evidence of stress or maybe just long hours. There was also a small scar above his left eyebrow that the professional photos had not captured. "I am Sophie Kelly. Your mail keeps getting delivered to my address. I have been sending it back, but this came today and I thought it was too important to risk losing in the mail." She pulled the envelope from her purse and held it out to him. Nathan took it, his fingers brushing hers for just a second. He opened the envelope and pulled out the check, his expression darkening. 428 Maple Grove Lane, he said, reading the address on the envelope. "That is my apartment, yes. This is the 3rd time this month." He was not talking to her exactly, more thinking out loud. "I am going to fire my accountant." "Why does your mail keep coming to me?" Sophie asked. "I have lived there for 3 years. Did you use that address for something?" Nathan's jaw tightened. He looked at her again, really looked at her this time, and something flickered across his face. Recognition maybe, or something else she could not quite identify. "I appreciate you bringing this," he said, his tone formal. "You went out of your way. Let me compensate you for your time." "What? No, I do not want money. I just want to stop getting your mail." "I will handle it." He pulled out his phone again, already moving on to the next thing. The conversation was clearly over in his mind. Sophie felt a flash of irritation. She had driven all the way here, interrupted her workday, and he was dismissing her like she was an inconvenience. "You know, a simple thank you would work too," she said before she could stop herself. Nathan looked up from his phone, surprise crossing his features. People probably did not talk to him like that very often. "Thank you," he said, and there was something almost amused in his voice. "Truly." This could have been a significant problem if it had gotten lost. You are welcome. Sophie turned to leave, then paused. But seriously, please fix whatever is causing this. I do not want to have to come back. You would not want to come back. There was a hint of something playful in his tone now, so slight she almost missed it. To return your mail. No, I have better things to do with my lunch break. This time Nathan definitely almost smiled. The corner of his mouth twitched. I will take care of it immediately. You have my word. Sophie nodded and walked back through the lobby, feeling his eyes on her the whole way. When she reached her car, she let out a long breath. That was done. No more Nathan Harlow, no more mystery mail. Except when she got home that evening, there were 3 more envelopes in her mailbox, all addressed to him. She took a photo of them and found Harlow Industries' main contact email online. She wrote a brief message explaining the ongoing problem and attached the photo, then sent it off. Hopefully, someone in his office would actually fix this. The next day, a Friday, she worked from home, reviewing reports and preparing a presentation for a potential new client. Around 2 in the afternoon, her building's buzzer rang. Sophie pressed the intercom button. Hello. Delivery for Sophie Kelly. The voice was male, unfamiliar. She was not expecting anything, but maybe Marcus had sent over documents. She buzzed them in and waited by her door. When she heard footsteps on the stairs, she opened it. Nathan Harlow stood in her hallway, holding the 3 envelopes she had photographed. He was dressed more casually than yesterday, dark jeans and a gray Henley shirt under a black jacket, but he still looked completely out of place in her shabby chic building. What are you doing here? Sophie asked, too shocked to be polite. Delivering my mail, Nathan said. You wanted me to fix the problem, I am fixing it. By coming to my apartment. By seeing what the actual problem is. May I come in? Sophie hesitated. This was bizarre. CEOs did not personally investigate mail mix-ups. But there was something in his expression, a determination that suggested he would stand in her hallway until she agreed. Fine, but just for a minute. I have work to do. She stepped aside and he walked in, his eyes immediately scanning everything. Her apartment was small. A studio with a kitchen nook, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, and a main living space that she had divided with a bookshelf to create a separate bedroom area. It was cozy, filled with plants on every available surface, art prints on the walls, and a comfortable mess of throw pillows on her couch. Nathan walked to the window, looking down at the street below, then turned back to her. How long did you say you have lived here? 3 years. Why? And the mail started arriving when? About 6 months ago. Small things at first, then more frequently. Nathan pulled out his phone and made a call. Eric, I need you to pull all address records associated with my accounts, personal and business. Yes, everything. I am looking for 428 Maple Grove Lane. Check old files too, anything from the past 5 years. He ended the call and met Sophie's curious gaze. I think I know what happened, he said. About 4 years ago, I was looking at properties in this area. This building was one of them. I must have used this address for something during the due diligence process, and it never got removed from my records. You were going to buy this building. I was considering it, ultimately decided against it. The owner wanted too much for what it was worth. He looked around again. I made the right choice, Sophie bristled. This place has character. It has character the way a broken-down car has character. It is charming in theory but impractical in reality. Not everyone needs luxury penthouses and pristine marble. No, but everyone needs functioning heat and walls without water damage. He pointed to a spot near her window where the paint was slightly discolored. That is from 2 years ago and it has been fixed, properly. What does it matter to you? Nathan slipped his phone back into his pocket. It matters because my mail is coming here and I want to understand why. Now I know. I will have everything corrected in my system by Monday. You should not receive anything else. Great, thank you. Sophie crossed her arms, waiting for him to leave. He did not move. Instead, he walked over to her bookshelf, looking at the titles. Business books mixed with novels, field guides to local plants, a worn copy of a poetry collection. You work in environmental consulting, he said. It was not a question. How did you know that? I looked you up after you left yesterday. Sophie Kelly, senior consultant at Green Path Solutions. Impressive resume. You worked on the water reclamation project for the Riverside development. You researched me. You delivered a check for $47,000 to me personally when you could have deposited it yourself or thrown it away. I wanted to know who you were. He turned to face her. That was a good project, by the way. The Riverside development. Innovative use of graywater systems. Sophie was not sure what to make of this. Thank you. It was a challenge getting the developers to commit to the cost upfront, but the long-term savings convinced them. That is always the challenge. Everyone wants sustainability until they see the price tag. He moved closer to where she stood. What made you choose environmental work? Why do you care? I am curious. There was something disarming about his directness. Sophie found herself answering before she could think better of it. My grandfather owned a farm upstate. When I was a kid, I spent every summer there. He taught me about the land, about working with nature instead of against it. He lost the farm when I was in high school because of a drought. The wells dried up, crops failed. It destroyed him. She paused, the old pain still sharp. I wanted to do something that mattered, that helped prevent that from happening to other people. Nathan was quiet for a moment. My father owned a factory. When I was growing up, I watched it slowly poison the town around it. The water, the air, the soil. He did not care. Profit was all that mattered to him. When I took over the company, changing everything was not just good business. It was necessary. Sophie looked at him with new understanding. That must have been difficult. It cost me my relationship with my father. He died thinking I destroyed his legacy. Nathan's voice was even, but there was an undercurrent of old hurt. But the town's cancer rates have dropped by 30% since we implemented new protocols. I would make the same choice again. They stood there in her small apartment, the afternoon light streaming through the window, and something shifted. He was not just a wealthy CEO anymore, and she was not just an annoyed resident dealing with male problems. They were two people who had seen the cost of environmental damage up close and personal. I should go, Nathan said finally. I have taken up enough of your afternoon. Thank you for coming to figure this out and for sharing that about your father. Thank you for bringing me my mail. Both times now. He moved toward the door, then paused. Sophie, would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? The question caught her completely off guard. What? Dinner? Tomorrow? I know a place that sources everything locally and has a zero-waste kitchen. I think you would appreciate it. I do not even know you. Then dinner would be a chance to fix that. Sophie's mind raced. This was absurd. They had nothing in common except accidentally shared mail and similar work in sustainability. He was a millionaire CEO who wore suits that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She was a consultant who bought most of her clothes secondhand and considered pizza a major food group. But there was something in the way he looked at her, a genuine interest that seemed rare for someone in his position. And she could not deny that she was curious about him too. Okay, she heard herself say. Tomorrow night. Nathan's face transformed when he smiled, really smiled. It softened all his sharp edges and made him look younger, more approachable. I will pick you up at 7. After he left, Sophie stood in her apartment wondering what she had just agreed to. She texted her best friend Rachel immediately. I think I just agreed to go on a date with a millionaire. Rachel's response came seconds later. What? Tell me everything right now. Sophie spent the next hour explaining the whole bizarre situation, from the mail mix-up to Nathan showing up at her door to the unexpected dinner invitation. Rachel's responses ranged from shocked to excited to cautiously optimistic. Just be careful, Rachel wrote finally. Rich guys can be complicated, but also have fun. You deserve fun. Sophie tried to work the rest of the afternoon but found it impossible to concentrate. She kept thinking about Nathan's eyes, the way he had looked at her books, the story about his father. There was depth there, something real beneath the polished exterior. That evening she went through her closet 3 times, trying to figure out what someone wore to dinner with a CEO at a restaurant that probably did not have prices on the menu. She settled on a simple black dress that was nice enough to be appropriate, but not so fancy that she felt like she was trying too hard. Saturday morning, she woke up anxious. The whole thing felt surreal. She cleaned her already clean apartment, went for a run to burn off nervous energy, called her mother who was predictably both excited and worried, and then spent far too long on her hair and makeup. Nathan arrived exactly at 7, which somehow did not surprise her. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal button-down shirt, looking effortlessly put together. He held a small potted plant, some kind of succulent in a ceramic container. I did not know if you were a flower person, he said, handing it to her, but I noticed you have a lot of plants. I thought this fit better. Sophie took the plant, touched by the thoughtfulness. This is perfect, thank you. The restaurant was in a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. The hostess greeted Nathan by name and led them to a quiet table by a window overlooking the river. The menu was small, changing daily based on what was available from local farms. This place is incredible, Sophie said, looking around. I have never heard of it. They only opened 6 months ago. The chef is committed to sustainable practices. Even the furniture is made from reclaimed materials. Nathan opened his menu. I am on the board of advisors. We help them secure grants to get started. Of course you are, Sophie smiled. Do you do this with all your first dates? Impress them with your commitment to sustainability. I would not know. I have not been on a first date in over 2 years. That surprised her. Really, why not? Work mostly. Building a company does not leave much time for personal life, and when I did try dating, it never went well. Women either wanted access to my money or they wanted me to be someone I am not. He set down his menu and met her eyes. You are the first person in a long time who seems to see me as just a person. Well, you did invade my mailbox. That breaks down barriers pretty quickly. Nathan laughed, a genuine sound that made Sophie's stomach flutter. I suppose it does. They ordered, and the conversation flowed easily. Nathan asked about her work, and she found herself telling him about her current projects, the challenges of convincing businesses to invest in long-term sustainability. He listened intently, asking smart questions, offering insights from his own experience. The key is showing them the return on investment, Nathan said as their entrees arrived. Not just financially, but in terms of brand value, customer loyalty, employee satisfaction. People want to work for and buy from companies that align with their values. That is exactly what I tell clients, but it is not always easy to quantify. How do you measure brand value, customer retention rates, social media engagement, employee turnover? The data is there if you know where to look. He paused. Actually, we developed a model for this at Harlow Industries. I could share it with you if you think it would help. You would do that. Why not? If it helps more businesses make sustainable choices, everyone wins. They talked through dinner, through dessert, through coffee. Sophie learned that Nathan had a younger sister who was a marine biologist, that he played piano when he needed to think, that he had a rescue dog named Murphy who was possibly the worst-behaved animal in existence, but Nathan loved him anyway. She told him about growing up in a small town, about her brother who was a teacher, about her absolute terror of birds after being attacked by a goose as a child. A goose? Nathan was grinning. They are vicious. Do not laugh at me. I am not laughing. He was definitely laughing. You are absolutely laughing. Okay, I am laughing, but only because I am imagining you running from a goose, and it is adorable. When they finally left the restaurant, it was past 11. Nathan walked her to his car, a sleek hybrid SUV, and they drove back to her apartment in comfortable silence. I had a really good time tonight, Sophie said as he pulled up to her building. So did I. Nathan turned off the engine. Can I see you again? I would like that. Tomorrow. Sophie laughed. Eager. When I want something, I do not see the point in waiting. His voice was low, serious. And I want to see you again, Sophie. Her breath caught. Tomorrow works, but something casual this time. I want to see you outside of fancy restaurants and business settings. What did you have in mind? There is a farmer's market near the river. We could walk around, get coffee, just talk. No pressure, no performance. Nathan nodded slowly. I would like that. What time? 9. Unless that is too early for a Sunday. I am usually at the office by 7 on Sundays. 9 is sleeping in for me. You work 7 days a week, most weeks. There is always something that needs attention. Sophie frowned. That is not sustainable, literally. I know, I am working on it. He reached across the console and took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. Maybe you can help me with that. The touch sent electricity up her arm. Sophie squeezed his hand gently. Maybe I can. She went to pull away, but Nathan held on for another moment. Can I walk you up? That eager to see my apartment again. That eager to spend another 3 minutes with you. Sophie's heart flipped. Okay. They walked up to her apartment and Sophie unlocked the door, very aware of Nathan standing close behind her. She turned to say goodnight, and suddenly he was right there, closer than he had been all evening. Thank you for tonight, he said softly. For giving this a chance. Thank you for asking. Nathan lifted his hand and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. I am going to kiss you now if that is okay. That is okay. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but Sophie did not want to change her mind. When his lips met hers, it was soft at first, tentative like a question. Then Sophie pressed closer and the kiss deepened, his hand sliding into her hair, her fingers gripping his shirt. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. Tomorrow cannot come fast enough, he murmured. Sophie smiled against his mouth. It is only 12 hours. 12 hours too many. He kissed her once more, quick and sweet, then forced himself to step back. Good night, Sophie. Good night, Nathan. She watched him walk down the stairs, then went inside and immediately texted Rachel. He kissed me and I am pretty sure I am in trouble. Sunday morning dawned bright and cold, perfect weather for the farmer's market. Sophie dressed in jeans, boots, and a thick cable-knit sweater, going for comfortable over impressive. When Nathan arrived, he was dressed similarly in jeans and a dark green sweater that made his eyes look more blue than gray. He looked younger like this, more relaxed. No suit, Sophie commented as they walked to his car. You said casual. I can do casual. Can you, though? This is not going to ruin your reputation as a serious businessman. My reputation can survive me wearing jeans on a Sunday. He opened her door. Besides, I do not care what people think. The farmer's market was busy, vendors selling everything from organic produce to handmade soaps to fresh baked bread. Sophie loved the energy of it. the community feel. She bought vegetables for the week while Nathan carried her bags, pointing out things that caught his interest. At a honey stand, he bought 6 jars of different varieties. Murphy has allergies. Local honey helps. Your dog has allergies. Everything is a production with him, but he is worth it. Nathan pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Murphy was a golden retriever mix with one floppy ear and what looked like a permanent expression of confused happiness. Oh my God, he is adorable. He is a disaster. But yes, also adorable. They got coffee from a vendor and found a bench overlooking the river. The sun glinted off the water and Sophie felt completely content. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said after a moment, "Of course. Last night you said rich guys can be complicated. Is that going to be an issue?" "My money." Sophie turned to look at him. "I would be lying if I said it was not something I thought about. We come from very different worlds. Money does not change who someone is fundamentally. Maybe not, but it changes how you move through the world. You have security, options, freedom that most people do not have. That creates a gap." Nathan was quiet, considering her words. "You are right. I have been fortunate, privileged in ways I do not always acknowledge, but I have also worked incredibly hard for what I have. And I am not interested in being with someone who sees me as a bank account. I do not see you that way. I know, that is why I am here." He took her hand. "I want to be clear about something. I am not looking for casual. I do not have time for games or uncertainty. I like you, Sophie, a lot. If we are doing this, I want to do it right." The directness should have been overwhelming, but instead it was refreshing. Sophie appreciated knowing where she stood. "I like you too, but I need us to take it at a reasonable pace. Last night was our first date. This is our second. I do not want to rush into something we are not ready for." "What is reasonable to you?" "Getting to know each other. Real things, not just surface level, and being honest when something does not feel right." "I can do that." Nathan lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. "I want to do that." They spent the rest of the morning at the market, then got lunch at a food truck that served gourmet grilled cheese. Nathan ate his sandwich like a normal person, no pretense or formality, and Sophie realized he was letting his guard down with her in a way he probably did not with many people. "What was your father like?" she asked. Before things got bad with the business, Nathan's expression clouded. "Demanding. He expected perfection in everything. I was running equipment in the factory when I was 14, learning the business from the ground up. He said if I was going to inherit it someday, I needed to understand every aspect. That is a lot of pressure for a kid. It was what he knew. His father had done the same to him, but there was no warmth in it, no pride, just constant criticism." Nathan stared at the river. "When I told him I wanted to change how we manufactured our products, to invest in sustainable materials and processes, he said I was throwing away his life's work. We barely spoke the last 2 years of his life. I am sorry. That must have been horrible. It was necessary." "But yes, also horrible." He looked at her. "What about your family? You mentioned a brother, David. He is 3 years older, teaches high school history. We are close. He was my protector growing up, still is in a lot of ways." Sophie smiled at the thought of her brother. "He is married to a wonderful woman named Lisa. They have a daughter, Emma, who just turned 5 and is convinced she is going to be an astronaut. Is he protective of you? Should I be worried about meeting him? You want to meet my family?" "Eventually, yes." "If things keep going well between us." Nathan met her eyes. "Is that too fast?" "No, it is honest. I appreciate that." Sophie bumped her shoulder against his. "And yes, David is protective, but he will like you if he sees that you treat me well. I plan to treat you very well." The way he said it, with that intense focus he brought to everything, made Sophie's stomach flip. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, walking along the river, talking about everything and nothing. Nathan told her about the expansion plans for Harlow Industries, about his sister's research on coral reef restoration, about his complete inability to cook anything beyond scrambled eggs. Sophie told him about her dream of starting her own consulting firm someday, about her love of hiking, about the year she spent in Costa Rica studying rainforest ecosystems. "You lived in Costa Rica?" Nathan asked. "When?" "Right after college. It was supposed to be 3 months, but I extended it to a year. Best decision I ever made." "What brought you back?" "Student loans and reality. But I go back when I can. There is something about being in the rainforest, surrounded by that much life, that makes everything else seem small." "I have never been to the rainforest." "Never. I have been to a lot of places for business, but I do not travel for pleasure much. There is always too much to do." Sophie shook her head. "Nathan, you are going to burn out if you do not take breaks. When was your last vacation?" He thought about it. 4 years ago, I went to my sister's graduation in California, flew out for the weekend. That is not a vacation. That is a trip. She stopped walking and turned to face him. "I am serious. You need to take care of yourself. I know, I just do not know how to step away. The company, the employees, they depend on me. And they will keep depending on you until you collapse from exhaustion. Then what?" Sophie softened her tone. "I am not trying to lecture you. I am worried. You deserve rest and joy and experiences that have nothing to do with work." Nathan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "When was the last time someone worried about me? I do not know. When was it? I cannot remember. My sister tries, but she is busy with her own life. Everyone else just wants something from me." He pressed his face into her hair. "This is new. You being concerned because you care, not because it affects you." Sophie hugged him tighter. "I do care. Already, which is probably ridiculous since we barely know each other, but I do." "It is not ridiculous. I feel it too." They stood there by the river, holding each other, and Sophie felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This was not just attraction or the excitement of something new. This was real and deep and potentially life-changing. When Nathan drove her home that evening, he walked her up again and kissed her slowly, thoroughly, until Sophie's knees felt weak. "Can I see you this week?" he asked against her lips. "I have a dinner meeting Tuesday with a client, but any other night works. Wednesday, I will make us dinner." "You said you cannot cook." "I will learn for you," Sophie laughed. "Or we could cook together, that might be safer. Deal, your place or mine?" "Yours. I want to see where you live and meet Murphy." "Murphy is a terrible first impression, but okay." Nathan kissed her again. Wednesday at 7. The next 2 days at work were difficult to focus on. Sophie kept finding herself thinking about Nathan, about the feel of his arms around her, about the vulnerability he had shown. Rachel noticed immediately. "You have it bad," she said when they met for lunch on Tuesday. "Is it that obvious? You checked your phone 6 times in the last 10 minutes. So yes." Rachel stole a French fry from Sophie's plate. "Tell me everything." Sophie recounted the weekend, leaving out some of the more private moments but sharing enough for Rachel to understand what was happening. "He sounds really great, Soph, different from what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I do not know. Someone more arrogant maybe, entitled. But the way you describe him, he sounds genuine." "He is. He has walls, but when he lets them down, there is this whole other person underneath. Someone who cares deeply about things, who has been hurt and does not want to be hurt again." Sophie paused. "I think I could fall in love with him, really love him." Rachel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Then let yourself. You have been so cautious since Andrew. It is okay to take a risk again." Andrew. Sophie had not thought about her ex in months. That relationship had ended almost a year ago when she realized they wanted completely different things. He had been safe, predictable, and ultimately wrong for her. What she felt for Nathan was the opposite of safe. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Wednesday evening, Sophie drove to Nathan's address, a modern building in the upscale part of the city. The penthouse, of course. She buzzed up and he let her in, his voice warm through the intercom. The elevator opened directly into his apartment, and Sophie stepped into a space that was both impressive and surprisingly homey. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but the furniture was comfortable rather than showy. There were books everywhere, plants similar to hers, and framed photos on the shelves showing Nathan with his sister, with Murphy, with people who looked like friends. Before she could take it all in, a golden blur came barreling toward her. Murphy jumped up, paws on her stomach, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. "Murphy, down," Nathan commanded, appearing from what looked like the kitchen. He wore jeans and a t-shirt, his feet bare. "Sorry, he has no manners. It is okay." Sophie laughed and dropped to her knees, letting Murphy lick her face. "Hi, buddy. You are even cuter in person. Do not encourage him. He is already spoiled." Sophie stood up, and Nathan immediately pulled her close, kissing her like he had been waiting all week to do exactly that. "Hi," he murmured when they finally broke apart. "Hi yourself. I missed you. It has been 2 days. 2 very long days." He took her hand and led her to the kitchen. "Come on, I got ingredients for pasta that seemed hard to mess up." They cooked together, Nathan following her instructions with the focus he brought to everything. He chopped vegetables while she made the sauce, and they talked about their days. Sophie told him about her client meeting, about the restaurant owner who wanted to go green but was worried about the costs. "What is the size of the operation?" Nathan asked. 5 locations, medium volume. They want to focus on reducing food waste first, then tackle energy efficiency. "That is smart. Quick wins build momentum." Nathan scraped the vegetables into the pan Sophie was heating. "Tell them to start with a composting program and portion control. Both reduce waste and save money immediately. Once they see the financial benefit, they will be more willing to invest in bigger changes." "That is good advice. Thank you. Use me as a resource anytime. I mean that." They ate dinner at his dining table, Murphy lying hopefully at their feet waiting for scraps. The pasta was actually good, and Sophie told Nathan so. "Beginner's luck," he said. "Or maybe I just had a good teacher." After dinner, Nathan gave her a tour of the apartment. His bedroom was sleek and masculine, with a huge bed and another wall of windows. His office had 2 monitors and shelves full of binders and books about manufacturing, sustainability, and business strategy. "This is where you work on Sundays," Sophie said, looking around. "Usually, though I am trying to change that. Because of me. Because of you showing me there are better ways to spend my time." Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I like who I am when I am with you, less driven by work, more present." Sophie leaned back against him. "I like who you are too, both versions." They moved to the couch, and Nathan put on music, something instrumental and soothing. They sat close, Sophie curled against his side, his arm around her shoulders. It felt natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of days. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said after a while. "Always. What happened with your last relationship? You mentioned an ex briefly." Sophie had known this would come up eventually. "His name was Andrew. We dated for 2 years. He was nice, stable, exactly the kind of guy you are supposed to end up with. But there was no passion, no real connection. We were together because it was comfortable, not because we could not imagine being with anyone else." She looked up at Nathan. "I ended it because I realized I wanted more. I wanted to feel something real." "Do you feel something real with me?" "Yes." It scares me how much. Nathan tightened his hold on her. It scares me too. I have spent years building walls, keeping people at a distance. It is safer that way, but with you, I do not want walls. I want everything. Sophie turned in his arms so she could see his face. Nathan, we have known each other for less than a week. I know, but I also know what I want, and I want you, Sophie. I want to see where this goes. I want to try. I want that too, but we have to be smart about this. Take our time, make sure it is real. It is real. I have never been more certain of anything. He kissed her then, deep and slow, his hands tangling in her hair. Sophie kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it. The attraction, the curiosity, the hope that this could be something extraordinary. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said softly. "Not for anything physical. I just want you here, want to fall asleep with you and wake up with you." Sophie knew she should probably say no, that moving this fast was risky. But her heart was louder than her caution. "Okay, I will stay." Nathan's face lit up. He lent her clothes to sleep in, an old t-shirt and sweatpants that were huge on her frame. They got ready for bed together, the domesticity of it feeling both foreign and perfect. In bed, Nathan pulled her close, her back to his chest, his arm wrapped securely around her waist. Murphy jumped up and curled at their feet, completing the picture. "Thank you," Nathan whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For taking a chance on me. For being here. For making me want to be better." Sophie laced her fingers through his. "Thank you for letting me in." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and Sophie felt safe in a way she had not in years. She woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. Nathan was already up, standing in the kitchen in just sweatpants, his hair messy from sleep. He looked over when he heard her moving and smiled. "Good morning. Coffee, please." Sophie patted over, still wearing his clothes. Nathan handed her a mug and kissed her forehead. "I have to go to the office for a few hours today. There is a meeting I cannot miss, but I can be done by 2 if you want to do something this afternoon." "I have to work too. Reports due tomorrow." Sophie took a sip of coffee. It was perfect, exactly how she liked it. "How did you know I take my coffee with just a little cream?" "I paid attention at the farmer's market." Nathan ran his hand down her arm. "I pay attention to everything about you." Sophie spent the morning at Nathan's apartment, working on her laptop while he was at his meeting. It felt comfortable being in his space, surrounded by his things. Murphy kept her company, resting his head on her lap and sighing dramatically whenever she stopped petting him. When Nathan returned around 2, he found her on the couch buried in spreadsheets. He leaned down and kissed her, and Sophie saved her work and closed her laptop. "Done?" he asked. "For now. What did you have in mind for this afternoon?" "There is something I want to show you. Can you spare a few hours? Mysterious, I like it." They drove out of the city, heading north into rolling hills covered in bare trees. Nathan would not tell her where they were going, just kept driving with a small smile on his face. After about 45 minutes, he turned down a gravel road that led to a large property surrounded by woods. "What is this?" Sophie asked as they pulled up to a low building that looked like a workshop. "This is where Harlow Industries started. My grandfather built this shop in the 50s. My father expanded it in the 80s. When I took over and moved operations to the city, I kept this place." Nathan got out of the car. "Come on." Inside, the building was full of woodworking equipment, drafting tables, and half-finished projects. It smelled like sawdust and oil, familiar and nostalgic. "You work here?" Sophie asked, looking around in wonder. "Sometimes. When I need to think or create something with my hands. It reminds me why I do what I do." Nathan walked to a workbench and picked up a piece of wood, running his fingers along its grain. "My grandfather taught me to work wood before I could read." He said if you understood how to shape something beautiful from raw materials, you would understand business. Was he right, in a way? Building something, whether it is a table or a company, requires patience, skill, and respect for what you are working with. You cannot force it. You have to work with the material's natural properties. He set down the wood and looked at her. I have never brought anyone here before. This place is private just for me, but I wanted you to see it, to understand this part of who I am. Sophie's heart swelled. This was trust, real and vulnerable. Thank you for sharing this with me. Nathan showed her some of the pieces he had made over the years. A dining table with intricate joinery, a rocking chair with a curved back that looked like art, a set of bowls turned from a single piece of maple. Everything was beautiful and clearly crafted with immense care. These are incredible, Sophie said, running her hand over the rocking chair. You should sell them. They are not for sale. I make them because I need to, not for profit. Nathan pulled her close. But I was thinking I could make something for you. What would you want? You do not have to do that. I want to, tell me. Sophie thought about it. A cutting board, something simple and useful. I would think of you every time I used it. A cutting board, practical and perfect, just like you. Nathan kissed her temple. I will make you the best cutting board you have ever seen. They spent the afternoon in the workshop, Nathan explaining his process while Sophie asked questions and handed him tools. He started her cutting board, selecting a piece of walnut and beginning to shape it. His hands moved with confidence and precision, completely focused on the task. Watching him work, Sophie understood another layer of who Nathan was. He was not just a businessman obsessed with profit and growth. He was someone who valued craft, who found peace in creation, who understood that beauty and function could coexist. On the drive back to the city, Sophie rested her hand on Nathan's leg, feeling closer to him than ever. That was amazing, she said. Thank you for taking me there. Thank you for appreciating it. Most people would not understand why I keep that place. I understand. We all need space that is just ours, where we can be ourselves without performance or expectation. Nathan glanced at her, his expression soft. You get me, Sophie, in ways no one else has. Do you know how rare that is? I am starting to. That night, Sophie went back to her apartment and they texted until midnight, neither wanting to end the conversation. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Dinners at least twice a week, lunches when their schedules allowed, phone calls every night before bed. Nathan was integrating into Sophie's life, meeting her friends, joining her for a volunteer day at a community garden. Sophie met Nathan's sister Rebecca when she came to visit for a weekend. Rebecca was warm and funny, with the same intensity as her brother but directed toward marine life instead of business. She pulled Sophie aside on the second day of her visit. I have never seen Nathan like this, Rebecca said. They were in Nathan's kitchen making breakfast while Nathan and Murphy played in the living room. He is lighter, happier. That is because of you. He makes me happy too, Sophie said. Good. He deserves that. He has spent so long taking care of everyone else, he forgot to take care of himself. Rebecca flipped a pancake. Just promise me something. What? Do not give up on him when things get hard. Nathan has a tendency to retreat into work when he is stressed or scared. If you love him, and I think you do, you will have to be patient with that. I can be patient. Good. Because I am pretty sure he is in love with you. He has not said it yet, but I know my brother. Sophie's heart raced. She felt it too, the love growing between them, but neither of them had said the words yet. It felt too soon and yet not soon enough. The moment came a week later, completely unexpected. Sophie had a terrible day at work. A major client pulled out of a project she had been developing for months, taking their business to a cheaper competitor who promised results without the upfront investment. She knew it was a mistake, that cutting corners on sustainability never worked long-term, but it still stung. She called Nathan in tears, and he immediately left the office. He showed up at her apartment 30 minutes later with Thai food and a willingness to listen. Sophie told him everything, all her frustration and disappointment and fear that she was not good enough at her job. Nathan listened, holding her hand, letting her get it all out. When she finally stopped talking, he pulled her into his lap. "You are brilliant at your job," he said firmly. "That client made a short-sighted decision they will regret, but their loss is not your failure. You gave them the right advice. You cannot force people to make smart choices. I should have presented it better, found a way to make it more appealing. Or they are cheap and stupid and you are better off without them." Nathan cupped her face in his hands. "Sophie, you are one of the most talented environmental consultants I have encountered. You have integrity, knowledge, and passion. The right clients will see that and value it." "How are you so sure?" "Because I see it. Every day in everything you do, you make me want to be better, do better. If one client cannot see your worth, that is their problem, not yours." Sophie felt tears welling up again, but this time from gratitude. "How are you so good at knowing what to say?" "I am not. I am just honest about what I see when I look at you." Nathan brushed away her tears with his thumbs. "I love you, Sophie. I have been trying to wait, to not rush this, but I cannot keep it in anymore. I love you. The way you care about things, the way you challenge me, the way you see the best in everyone. I love all of it." Sophie's breath caught. "You love me, completely. Utterly. I know it is fast and you do not have to say it back, but I needed you to know I love you." Sophie kissed him, hard and desperate, trying to convey everything she felt. When she pulled back, she was crying again but smiling through the tears. "I love you too. I have been so scared to say it, but Nathan, I love you so much it terrifies me." Nathan kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. "Do not be scared. I am here. I am not going anywhere." They held each other on her couch while their food got cold, whispering promises and making plans. Sophie felt like something inside her had clicked into place, like she had been waiting her whole life for this person, this moment. Over the next few months, their relationship deepened. Nathan met Sophie's family, charming her mother with his manners and winning over her brother by genuinely listening to David's stories about his students. Emma declared Nathan her favorite because he taught her how to draw blueprints for the spaceship she wanted to build. Sophie spent more time at Harlow Industries, consulting on some of their newer initiatives. Nathan valued her input and made sure his team knew she was a respected advisor, not just the boss's girlfriend. She helped them develop a program to assist other businesses in their supply chain with adopting sustainable practices, creating a ripple effect of positive change. Nathan started taking actual vacations. They went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks, hiking through the rainforests Sophie loved. Nathan was like a kid, amazed by everything, taking hundreds of photos and asking Sophie to identify every plant and animal they saw. They stayed in eco-lodges and spent their days exploring and their nights talking under the stars. "I could get used to this," Nathan said one evening as they sat on their cabin's porch, listening to the sounds of the jungle. "Vacation Nathan is my favorite Nathan," Sophie teased. "He is relaxed and does not check his email every 5 minutes. I checked it once today. Improvement." Sophie leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for coming here with me, for understanding why this place matters to me. Thank you for showing me that life exists outside of work. Before you, I was so focused on building and achieving that I forgot to actually live." Nathan turned to face her. "Move in with me," Sophie blinked. "What? When we get back, move in with me. I know your lease is not up for a few months, but we could start planning for it. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want us to build a life together. Nathan, are you sure? That is a big step. I have never been more sure of anything. I love you. You love me. Why wait? Sophie thought about her little apartment, about the independence she had worked so hard for. But she also thought about how much time they already spent together, how natural it felt to be in his space, how much she wanted this. Okay, she said. Yes, I will move in with you. Nathan's face transformed with joy. He kissed her deeply, and they stayed on that porch long into the night, talking about their future. When they returned from Costa Rica, they started the process of combining their lives. Sophie slowly moved her things into Nathan's apartment, making space for her plants and books, and all the little things that made a place a home. Nathan cleared out closets and drawers, giving her room not just physically but metaphorically. Her lease ended in May, and on moving day, Nathan took the whole day off to help. David and Lisa came with Emma, and even Rebecca flew in for the weekend. They moved boxes and furniture, ate pizza on the floor, and christened the space as officially theirs. That night, after everyone left, Nathan and Sophie stood in their bedroom surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. "This is real," Sophie said. "We live together." "We live together," Nathan echoed, pulling her close, ready for all the mundane domestic moments. The arguing about whose turn it is to do dishes, the debates about thermostat settings, I am ready for all of it. The boring stuff, the hard stuff, everything. Sophie kissed him softly. "I am ready for forever with you." Forever sounds perfect. They settled into domestic life with surprising ease. Nathan was neater than Sophie expected, though he had a tendency to leave coffee mugs all over the apartment. Sophie learned that Nathan needed quiet in the mornings to think, and that he always made the bed as soon as he got up. Nathan learned that Sophie sang in the shower and could not function without her morning run. They had their first real fight 3 months after moving in together. Nathan had been working around the clock on a major acquisition, barely sleeping, pushing himself to exhaustion. Sophie tried to get him to slow down, but he insisted he had everything under control. When he finally snapped at her over something trivial, Sophie snapped back. "You are killing yourself for this company," she said, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "And for what? More money you do not need. More success to prove something to a father who is dead. You do not understand the pressure I am under. Then explain it to me instead of shutting me out. I am your partner, Nathan. Let me help." "I do not need help. I need you to trust that I know what I am doing." "I trust you." "I do not trust your inability to take care of yourself." They stood in their kitchen, both furious, both scared. Then Nathan's phone rang. He looked at the screen and sighed. "I have to take this." "Of course you do." Nathan answered the call and walked into his office, closing the door. Sophie felt tears of frustration building. She grabbed her keys and went for a drive, needing space to calm down. She ended up at the workshop, the place Nathan had first shown her. She sat in the quiet space, surrounded by his projects, and tried to sort through her emotions. She loved him, but loving him meant watching him slowly burn out. She did not know how to help someone who would not accept help. An hour later, Nathan's car pulled up outside. He came in, looking exhausted and miserable. "I am sorry," he said immediately. "You are right. I have been pushing too hard and I took my stress out on you. That was not fair. I am sorry too. I should not have brought up your father like that. It was cruel." Nathan crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. "It was also true. I have been trying to prove I was right, that changing the company was the right choice. But I have been so focused on that, I forgot what matters most. You, us, actually living our lives." He pulled back to look at her. "I am going to delegate more, hire a COO to handle the day-to-day operations. I cannot keep doing this." "Really, really." Because losing you is not an option, and I will lose you if I do not change. I see that now. Sophie hugged him tighter. You will not lose me, but I need you to take care of yourself. For you, not just for me. I will try, I promise. They worked through it, learning how to communicate better, how to fight fair, how to support each other through stress. Nathan did hire a COO, a brilliant woman named Patricia who took over much of the operational burden. It gave Nathan space to focus on strategy and innovation while actually maintaining work-life balance. A year after Sophie moved in, Nathan took her back to the workshop. He had been secretive about a project he was working on, disappearing for hours on weekends and refusing to show her what he was making. "Okay, I am ready," he said, pulling a sheet off a large object in the corner. It was a rocking chair, similar to the one he had shown her that first visit but more intricate. The wood was a beautiful honey color, and carved into the backrest was a scene of mountains and trees, rendered in stunning detail. "Nathan, it is gorgeous," Sophie breathed, running her fingers over the carving. "Look at the bottom." She knelt down and looked under the seat. There were words carved there, "For Sophie, who taught me to slow down and see the beauty. Will you marry me?" Sophie gasped and looked up. Nathan was kneeling beside the chair, holding a small box. He opened it to reveal a ring, a simple band with a single perfect stone that caught the light. "I know we have talked about marriage, but I wanted to ask properly. Sophie Kelly, you changed my life in every way that matters. You made me better, happier, more whole. I want to spend the rest of my life loving you, building a life with you, growing old with you. Will you marry me?" Sophie was crying, nodding before she could even form words. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." Nathan slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, both of them laughing and crying. Murphy, who had been waiting in the car, started barking, sensing the excitement. "I love you," Sophie said against Nathan's mouth. "I love you so much. I love you too, always." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the workshop, surrounded by family and close friends. Sophie wore a simple white dress, and Nathan wore a dark suit. Emma was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, making sure every petal was perfectly placed. Murphy was the ring bearer, though he got distracted by a squirrel halfway down the aisle and David had to retrieve the rings. Rebecca officiated, talking about love and partnership and the way Sophie and Nathan had found each other against all odds. When it was time for vows, Sophie went first. "Nathan, before you, I thought I knew what love was. I thought it was comfortable and safe and predictable. You showed me that real love is challenging and exciting and deep. You push me to be better while accepting exactly who I am. You see me, all of me, and you love me anyway. I promise to support your dreams, to call you out when you are working too hard, and to always hand-deliver your mail." Everyone laughed at that. "I promise to love you with everything I have for all my days." Nathan cleared his throat, emotional. "Sophie, you came into my life because of a mail mix-up, which might be the luckiest mistake that ever happened to me. You took my carefully controlled world and turned it upside down in the best way. You taught me to slow down, to notice beauty, to value experiences over achievements. You made me want to be more than just successful. You made me want to be good. I promise to love you, to choose you every day, to build a life with you that is full of joy and meaning. You are my home, Sophie. Always." They exchanged rings, kissed as everyone cheered, and walked back down the aisle as husband and wife. The reception was held outside, with food from local farms and music and dancing under string lights. It was perfect, exactly what they wanted. For their honeymoon, they went back to Costa Rica, spending 3 weeks exploring new parts of the rainforest and relaxing on quiet beaches. Nathan completely unplugged from work, and Sophie watched him transform into a more relaxed version of himself. "I could live like this," Nathan said one evening as they watched the sunset from their bungalow. "Beach bum Nathan. That would be interesting. Not permanently, but maybe we could do this more often. Take extended trips, really disconnect. I would love that." They returned to real life refreshed and more connected than ever. Sophie's consulting business was thriving, and she finally took the leap to start her own firm. Nathan supported her completely, helping with business plans and connections, but never overshadowing her work. She hired 2 junior consultants within the first year and had more clients than she could handle. Nathan continued to grow Harlow Industries, but with better balance. He made it home for dinner most nights, took weekends off, and actually used his vacation time. Patricia was an excellent COO, and Nathan learned to trust her to handle things without his constant oversight. 2 years into their marriage, they started talking about kids. It was not urgent, but both wanted a family eventually. They agreed to stop trying to prevent it and see what happened, taking the pressure off. Sophie got pregnant 4 months later. They were both thrilled and terrified, diving into parenting books and baby classes. Nathan built a nursery's worth of furniture in the workshop, including a crib with the same mountain scene he had carved into Sophie's rocking chair. Their daughter was born on a bright morning in October. They named her Lily Rebecca Harlow, and she had Nathan's dark hair and Sophie's green eyes. Nathan cried when he held her for the first time, this tiny perfect person they had created. "We made an actual human," he said in wonder. "We did. She is ours. I am going to be a good father, better than mine was." Sophie touched his face. "You are already an amazing father. I see it in how you look at her." Parenthood was exhausting and wonderful. They took turns with night feedings, learned to function on minimal sleep, and marveled at every tiny milestone. Nathan was a natural, patient and gentle with Lily in a way that made Sophie fall even more in love with him. When Lily was 6 months old, they had a small party to celebrate. David and Lisa brought Emma, who was now 10 and obsessed with being the big cousin. Rebecca came with her boyfriend, a marine biologist she had met at a conference. Sophie's parents drove in from their small town, her mother immediately monopolizing baby holding time. Nathan stood with Sophie, watching their families mingle and Lily being passed around for cuddles. "This is everything I did not know I wanted," Nathan said softly. "A family, a home, people who matter. Before you, I thought success meant money and power and respect. But this," he gestured to the room, "this is real success, love and connection and building something that matters." Sophie leaned against him. "I am so grateful that your mail got sent to my address. Best mistake that ever happened to both of us." They kissed, and Emma made exaggerated gagging sounds, making everyone laugh. Murphy trotted over with one of Lily's toys in his mouth, still as ridiculous as ever. As Sophie looked around at her life, at the family she and Nathan had built together, at the love that filled every corner of their home, she felt overwhelmed with happiness. It had started with a simple mail mix-up, an inconvenience that led her to hand-deliver a check to a stranger. That stranger had become her everything. Nathan squeezed her hand and she squeezed back, both of them understanding without words what they meant to each other. They had found something rare and precious, and they would protect it, nurture it, for all their days. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of their apartment, casting golden light on the people they loved most. Lily giggled in her grandmother's arms, Murphy chased Emma around the coffee table, and the sound of laughter filled the air. This was home. This was family. This was love in its purest, most beautiful form. And it had all started because Sophie Kelly had refused to let a $47,000 check get lost in the mail. Years later, when people asked them how they met, Nathan would always let Sophie tell the story. She would talk about the endless stream of misdelivered mail, about marching into his office with a check, about him showing up at her apartment. And Nathan would add that he fell in love with her the moment she called him out for being dismissive, when she demanded a simple thank you and treated him like a regular person instead of a powerful CEO. "She saw me," Nathan would say, pulling Sophie close. "Really saw me when everyone else just saw what I could do for them." And Sophie would kiss his cheek and add, "He saw me too. We saw each other and everything changed." Their story became family legend, the tale told at gatherings and celebrations. Emma would roll her eyes but secretly loved it, the romance of it all. Lily grew up hearing how her parents met, and it shaped her understanding of love as something unexpected and transformative. As the years passed, Nathan and Sophie built a life rich with meaning. They traveled together, taking Lily to see the world and teaching her to care for it. They worked on projects that made a difference, using their combined expertise to help businesses become more sustainable. Nathan eventually stepped back from daily operations at Harlow Industries entirely, focusing on advisory roles and spending more time in the workshop creating beautiful things with his hands. Sophie's consulting firm became one of the most respected in the industry, known for integrity and results. She hired carefully, building a team of people who shared her values and her commitment to real change. Nathan was her biggest supporter, celebrating every win and helping her navigate challenges. They had a second child, a son they named Henry David, when Lily was 3. He had Sophie's smile and Nathan's intensity, and he completed their family in ways they had not expected. Murphy, now elderly and moving slowly, became the children's devoted companion and guardian. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan took Sophie back to the workshop. It had become their place, where they went to reconnect and remember. He had made her something new, a jewelry box crafted from the same walnut he had used for her cutting board all those years ago. "Open it," he said. Inside was a letter, written in Nathan's careful handwriting. Sophie unfolded it and began to read. "My darling Sophie, 10 years ago you walked into my life because my mail kept ending up in your mailbox. It was chance, an accident, a mistake in some database somewhere. But I do not believe in accidents anymore. I believe you were meant to find me, to change me, to love me. Every day with you has been a gift. You made me a better man, a better partner, a better father. You taught me that success is not measured in profit margins but in the richness of our relationships and the depth of our love. Thank you for taking a chance on the grumpy CEO who could not be bothered to say thank you properly. Thank you for seeing past the walls I built and finding the person underneath. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me. I love you more today than the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. Forever yours, Nathan." Sophie was crying by the end, and Nathan wiped her tears gently. "You have given me everything," she said. "Everything I did not know to hope for. We gave it to each other." That is how the best partnerships work. They stood in the workshop surrounded by years of Nathan's creations, each one marking a moment in their shared life. The cutting board she still used every day. The rocking chair where she had nursed both babies. The children's toys he had crafted with loving detail. Every piece was a testament to his love, to the care he put into building their life together. When they returned home, Lily and Henry were waiting with a cake they had made, slightly lopsided and covered in too much frosting. They sang Happy Anniversary off-key while Murphy howled along. It was chaotic and perfect and exactly what their life had become. That night, after the kids were in bed, Nathan and Sophie sat on their balcony overlooking the city lights. He had his arm around her, and she leaned into him, feeling completely content. Do you ever think about what would have happened if your accountant had not made that mistake? Sophie asked. If your mail had never come to me, sometimes. But then I remember that I was looking at properties in your neighborhood for a reason. Some part of me knew I needed to be there, needed to find you. Nathan kissed her hair. I think we would have found each other eventually. Maybe not as quickly, but eventually. Some people are just meant to meet. That is very romantic for a former grumpy CEO. You made me romantic, among many other things. Sophie tilted her face up and kissed him, soft and sweet. I love you, Nathan Harlow. I love you, Sophie Harlow. They stayed there until late in the night, talking and dreaming about the future. About the trip they wanted to take the kids on. About the new sustainable housing project Nathan was consulting on. About Sophie's plan to write a book sharing what she had learned about environmental consulting. They talked about growing old together, about grandkids someday, about all the years they had ahead of them. It had all started so simply. A piece of mail going to the wrong address. A woman annoyed enough to hand deliver it. A man touched by the gesture enough to want to know her better. From that small beginning, they had built something extraordinary. Their love story was not about grand gestures or love at first sight. It was about two people seeing each other clearly, choosing each other daily, and building a life together one moment at a time. It was about hand delivering kindness and having that kindness return tenfold. It was about unexpected beginnings leading to forever endings. As Sophie fell asleep that night in Nathan's arms, she smiled thinking about the journey they had taken. From stranger to friend to lover to spouse to co-parent to life partner. Every stage had brought them closer, had deepened their bond until it was unbreakable. And it had all started because Nathan Harlow's mail kept getting delivered to her address. The best mistake that ever happened to either of them, leading to a love that would last all their days and beyond. A love that transformed them both, that gave them everything they never knew they needed. A love that began with a simple act of kindness and grew into something beautiful and lasting and true. Their story was proof that life could surprise you, that love could find you when you least expected it, and that sometimes the best things came from the most unlikely circumstances. All you had to do was be brave enough to hand deliver the mail and see where it led. For Sophie and Nathan, it led to everything.